Welcome to South Asia. This is your presenter J. Reddy. South Asia is educational channel brings culture, history, heritage of the ancient civilization South Asia, that is south of Karakoram Mountains and north of Kanyakumari for our audience, the intellectual Kshatriyas, in the form of icons, images, and maps. And today, the topic of discussion is imperialisms, the language of communist imperialism. I have been discussing about the imperialism, the lingo, or characteristic features of four imperialism. That is Islamic imperialism, Christian imperialism, and European imperialism, which I had already done before. We are looking at the last imperialism, communist imperialism. These are the imperialisms were discerned, analyzed by the intellectual think tank Voice of India authors Mahayogi Sri Ram Swarup ji and Sita Ram Goel ji. From Voice of India think tank, you can see them here, and they are considered to be India's greatest thinkers of the 20th century, doctriners and ideologues, and they have a very impact on the thinking sections of the society, even though that part is suppressed a lot by the Macaulayist and Stalinist and communist intellectuals in India. But their admirers aware that the importance of their analysis in presenting the native viewpoint. Sita Ram Goel ji, Roger C., intellectual Kshatriya, passed away 2003, and the India's great original thinker and Maharshi Ram Swarup ji passed away few years before, 1998, and their current work is carried by the Belgian Indologist. Himself is a very good thinker and scholar, authored more than 25 books or so on India. Each book is impeccable in knowledge, and when you start reading about his works, you will be totally, it is to say unfathomable how much knowledge he has about India, even though he comes from Europe. And really one can feel that Indians who live in this country and born in the ancient civilization should have developed that intellectual knowledge and acumen, incisiveness to present their viewpoint. Unfortunately, we didn't see them yet, and hopefully after these scholars' work the things should change. Then we look at the communist imperialism today. That is the point of discussion, and this is the fourth imperialism we are discussing. Imperialism has 9 parts or 9 points, to which Sita Ram Goel ji maps all these 4 imperialisms and delineates the language features of each imperialism. Later we look at all these 4 imperialisms next to each other with the language features, how they are the same eventually but little bit subtly different, speaking are dressed up little differently. That's the point we'll do in future. Excuse me. The language of communist imperialism is the language started trickling to India after Bolsheviks, a fraction of the Communist Party of Russia during the Russian Empire or Soviet Russian Empire, Tsarist Empire. Bolsheviks seized the power, overthrowing the Romanov dynasty in 1917. Even though the ideology was originally put forward by Marx and Engels, it is the Lenin who brought a prominence because he seized the state power and gave its a lot of political and military importance. Like Christianity was formulated by very few microscopic people in Judea, Samaria, and it lived very marginally for 3-4 decades until the swordsmen of Rome decided to propel it using their swords or their guns or their talwars. Same as in case of Islamic imperialism, the founder itself waged 25 ghazwas and established very firmly in Mecca, Medina, Arabian Peninsula and took it forward. That's the way it started. The leading Western thinkers like scholars Bertrand Russell has identified communism as a Christian heresy. Heresy means a type of deviant behavior. Suppose a particular section, a religious group has certain ideas, and if you differ from them, you are called heretics. What you say or believe is heresy. Take for examples, Orthodox Muslims beliefs like Sunnis. Sunnat means the straight path, orthodox. And deviants, heretics, believe Ali is also a person who received the revelations. Wali Allah, that means the deputy of Allah, assistant of Allah. Rasul Allah means messenger of Allah. Wali Allah, Ali, the relative of Muhammad and son-in-law, is also a part. That is called heresy, the heretics. Christianity, the Catholicism was established in Europe. Then the Protestant differed from the main part in certain aspects, even though both are essentially the same. They are called heresy or heretics. Sunnis and Shias are the same ideology, but they differed a little bit different. They are heresy, heretics. That the Bolsheviks, Mensheviks, these are Stalinists, Trotskyists. This each other group considered heresy. Previously well-established group considered the deviants as heretics and heresy. So Bertrand Russell identifies communism as a Christian heresy. The origin of language of communist imperialism, that's why it's same as a Christian imperialism, whose one heretical part or secular part is European imperialism, which we saw previously. Small wonder that the language of Sita Ram Goel says, no wonder that the language of communist imperialism is same as that of Christian imperialism, same as that of European imperialism. But it has some Marxist trappings, Marxist lingo. It looks very radical, and that Lenin disguised it with the Marxist trappings. It is same as a Christian imperialism or European imperialism. Communists shouted against all imperialisms and themselves were the major, the sourcemen of enforcing this imperialism towards Russia and thus Eastern Europe and all those areas in the world. And it became very obvious when we contemplate these features here. So I have put the icon here so that you can see we are talking about the language of communist imperialism. As usual, we looked at the 9 characters, features of all the imperialisms, and we here delineate this communist imperialism now. All the Sita Ram Goel points out 9 features or characters of imperialism and maps all these 4 very fascinating, interesting manner. That is one of the greatest things that if you start reading about his works, his mindset, and you'll be totally fascinated. The amount of thinking he has. And he's called a drishta, a deep thinker, a rajarshi. So, these are the 9 features. Every imperialism is an inscrutable entity. It has also is an incomparable person. It divides the human history in 2 parts and humanity into 2 parts. The land inhabited by the humans into 2 parts. It sees 3 clear-cut divisions of these 3 and bans all the people who brought into this profile imperialistic banner as one sterile group, and it mandates the whole earth for this group to defeat the others. Their imaginary enemies are the people who are not interested in this ideology are opposed to this ideology for any reason. And it sees the inevitabilities we'll discuss about. It speaks in high degree of self-righteousness, high degree of lingo, sanctimony, and so on. Because why you are doing like this, if you ask, they will show you point a finger at you and accuse you lot of crimes. And what is the crimes these people are supposed to have done? We will look at them. The Sita Ram Goel's book, Perversion of Political Parlance in India, that is the one from which I have taken these contents and tabulated for the easy articulation of our channel audience. Inscrutable entity. This is inscrutable. You cannot scrutinize it. In case of Islam, that is Allah. Nobody scrutinized him. Nobody knows where he lives. And in case of Christianity, it is Yahweh. In case of European imperialism, is the European civilization. Here, the lingo is a little different. This unscrutable entity is production, forces of production. Communists are very radical and very aggressive, talking about always the production. Of course, they have their hero, incomparable person. Islam has Muhammad and Christianity has the son of Yahweh itself, and European imperialism has white men. Here their hero, incomparable person, whatever he said, you have to follow. Because he is the one who was responsible for bringing this dormant ideology into prominent political power overnight when they overthrew the Bolsheviks, overthrew the Russian monarch, Romanov Empire. They got the last vast amount of territory, people to govern from the Baltic Ocean to Vostok Sea, the Sea of Japan, to Vladivostok. So he is a very incomparable person. Whatever he said, whatever he did, whatever came out of his mouth is incomparable. You cannot question it. You have to take it on the face value according to the ideologies of this imperialism. The human history is divided. In case of Islam, it is like darker period, everywhere, dark period, light period. That is because European Christian imperialism is the English-centric language, so we say dark period, light period. And in the European imperialism, little bit different, like the same thing. In case of Islam, the Arabic lingo is used, Jahiliya and Illa. It's the same thing, but they word it differently to look radically different. It is oppressed. Before the communism was established by the Bolsheviks in Petrograd or Leningrad, historic capital of Russia, every nation on the planet Earth was oppressed, they think. And they are the communism. So the history is oppressed history and communist history. The mankind in case of Islam is divided into believers, non-believers, Mu'mins and Muslims. In case of Christianity is the Gentiles and Christians. In case of European colonialism, imperialism, it is the white men or Europeans and not white men, savage people. Here, again, it gives radically looks different. Capitalists, these are the people who are supposed to have some money or some equipment and something. They are accused of the capitalist, and the rest of the people are workers, proletarians. So, in case of the communist lingo in India, if you see the newspapers, their articles, you see always capitalist proletarians, workers, capitalist, very high-sounding language. Of course, the land is divided into the communist world, non-communist world. Prominent British thinker and author and leader and of the World War II, he said, Iron Curtain is present between Eastern Europe and the Russian part and Western Europe. Churchill. So if the land is divided into two, like in case of Darul Harb and Darul Islam India, and the land of Gentiles and land of heathens and so on. It bans all these people, the people who are brought into communist government, like Albanians, the Chinese, where Mao took this one large-scale established communism. Of course, the Russians, East Europeans, as a one body, the communist or proletarian workers, they are called. I don't know. We don't know what is the difference between Romanian workers and the people across East Germans and across. They are the same culture, working almost the similar, but these people were given as a proletarian workers. So it ignores any historical, cultural significance of these nations and brands them like a proletarian, big, monolithic, artificial entity and puts this, enjoins, goes these proletarian workers, communists, to fight against capitalists. Their imaginary enemies, essentially the rest of the world where this ideology is not established. That means this language of communist imperialism bands all these people into one unique monolithic group. And here there is a typo. It mandates the earth for the Communist International. That means these are the legatees. That means who inherited this ideology. It is incumbent on them to fight and establish the communist system. Like the Allah has mandated this entire world to, after he created, gave it to Prophet Muhammad, his legatee, and after the death of Muhammad in Medina in Hijaz, his legatees, his inheritors like Rashidin Caliphate, then Umayyad Caliphate, Arab Caliphate, and so on, the Ghoris and Ghaznavis and Mughals and Mamluks, and all these people are next stage legatees and incumbent on them to establish further this ideology. So the whole earth is mandated to Communist International, that is a centralized political party organization run by the Soviets, where this ideology was first established in Petrograd area and the Baltics by the Bolshevik leader Lenin, Vladimir Lenin. And sees two inevitabilities. That in case of Islamic imperialism, the triumph of Ummah and defeat and subjugation of Kafirs. In case of Christian imperialism, inevitabilities are triumph of Christians, that means Christian proselytes, and subduing or defeat of Gentiles or heathens. In case of European imperialism, inevitability is a triumph of European civilization and defeat of savage, barbaric, non-European, Asian, African, Native American civilizations. Here it sees the inevitability, the victory of Communist International and defeat of these capitalist parties or capitalist civilizations. It has high degree of self-righteousness, like every imperialistic language. It is very smug. It is very sacrosanct. It has very, very big airs about itself. It feels superior, self-righteous. They believe themselves right and they believe everybody is wrong. Islam, Christianity, European imperialism, same, because communist imperialism is nothing but Christian imperialistic heresy, heretical part. It is same, high degree of self-righteousness. So all the vestiges of feudalism has to be eliminated from the land, planet Earth. What is that feudal? They capitalist, they call it feudals. And these feudals accused of doing lot of imaginary crimes like workers, suppressions and all those things, their rights, and very big lingo, self-righteous lingo around this ideology. And they are doing because these feudals, the landlords or capitalists, are accused of conspiring against the workers. That means the proletarians. The capitalists, they are called Kulaks, means even anybody has small land in Europe and Russia, they are called Kulaks. In India also you see the communist parties calling everybody has a small amount of the land, bigas are kulaks. Feudals, these are capitalists. This is a entire thing is the capital feudalism. So this feudalist conspired against what they say against proletarians and workers. In case of Islam, they accuse the non-Muslims, Kafirs, crime of shirk because they are worshipping other gods other than Allah, which they feel that is the true God. In case of Christianity, that's the sin. You are a sinner. You are not. You need to be you need a savior. So accusing the crimes, why you are attacking us, why you are telling all these things, you are a criminal or you have done something wrong. Thus the part accuses this ideology. The rest of the mankind is a feudal lords or capitalists, so they need to be cured or defeated. And we have seen this book, and I will show you if the people are only looking up this particular presentation, not other. And I have taken this most of the points from the Voice of India think tank books, and Sita Ram Goel, Swarup and Koenraad Elst has authored so many books. Fortunately, some of their admirers have put them on the internet, and you can go and look at them and estimate yourself the intellectual acumen they have used and developed and analyzing these ideologies. This is the one book, Perversion of Political Parlance in India, and he has 7 or 8 chapters. I have taken from them characters of the leftist languages. So we looked at the characters. What are the 8 characters, imperialistic characters? These 8 characters, we looked at it, and previously we mapped these 8 characters. We saw the language of Islamic imperialism, and later we mapped these 8 characters of imperialism to the language of Christian imperialism, and we mapped before that to the language of Western imperialism. Just now we looked at the language of communist imperialism and map, and I have taken this most of them from verbatim as it is. Like this language started trickling in soon after the Bolsheviks seized the power in Russia in November 1917, and Bertrand Russell saying and so on. So yeah, this is today what we talked in general about the characters of our imperialisms, 4 imperialisms on the planet Earth, as analyzed by the Voice of India think tank, Sita Ram Goel and Swarup, and we looked at the communist imperialism which started trickling into India after Bolsheviks seized power in Russia, and Bertrand Russell and other European thinkers feel that this is nothing but a communist heresy. Communism is a Christian heresy, and European imperialism is also a Christian heresy. And we saw the 8 characters: inscrutable entity, incomparable person, human history divided into 2 parts, humanity divided into 2 parts, land divided into 2 parts, communist world and non-communist world, and all these people adherents are brought into monolithic group as a communists or proletarians or a workers, and put against their imaginative enemies, that is the feudals, landlords, and the capitalists, and so on, and the inevitable victory of the Communist International, that party, and finally that feudals and capitalists were accused of all the crimes and so on. That is in essence about the language of communist imperialism from the ideas of Sita Ram Goel, the intellectual Kshatriya of modern India, Rajarsi Sita Ram Goel. And this is your presenter for South Asia, and I appreciate your patronage and subscriptions and comments, and we will see you in the next presentation very soon. Thank you very much again. J. Reddy, South Asia Maps.